As we have learned by now, there were major attempts to prohibit the collaboration of poor whites and black people, particularly poor whites helping black slaves. It says here, the instances where poor whites helped slaves were not frequent, but sufficient to show the need for setting one group against the other. Genovese says, the slaveholders suspected that non-slaveholders would encourage slave disobedience and even rebellion, not so much out of sympathy for the blacks, as out of hatred for the rich planters and resentment of their own poverty. And each such incident rekindled fears. This helps explain the stern police measures against whites who fraternize with blacks. Herbert Aptheker quotes a report to the governor of Virginia on a slave conspiracy in 1802. I have just received information that 3 white persons are concerned in the plot, and they have arms and ammunition concealed under their houses, and were to give aid when the Negroes should begin. One of the conspiring slaves said it was the common run of the poor white people who were involved. In return, blacks helped whites in need. Listen to this. One black runaway told of a slave woman who had received 50 lashes of the whip for giving food to a white neighbor who was poor and sick. When the Brunswick Canal was built in Georgia, the black slaves and white Irish workers were segregated, the excuse being that they would do violence against one another. That may well have been true, but Fanny Kemble, the famous actress and wife of a planter, wrote in her journal, but the Irish are not only quarrelers and rioters and fighters and drinkers and despisers of the hard N-word. They are passionate, impulsive, warm-hearted, generous people, much given to powerful indignations which break out suddenly when not compelled to smolder sullenly. Pestilent sympathizers too, and with a sufficient dose of American atmospheric air in their lungs, properly mixed with a right proportion of ardent spirits, there is no saying but what they might actually take to sympathy with the slaves, and I leave you to judge of the possible consequences. You perceive, I am sure, that they can by no means be allowed to work together on the Brunswick Canal. The need for slave control led to an ingenious device, paying poor whites, themselves so troublesome for 200 years of Southern history, to be overseers of black labor and therefore buffers for black hatred.